episode. Uh, I hope you're all doing well and enjoying the summer. Um, I want to talk about today a recent Tom DeLonge interview that he did on Steve-O's podcast called Steve-O's Wild Ride. Um, I hope most of you have already seen it because it's a really great interview. I think it came out a few weeks ago, and yeah, it was really fun. I really liked it. It was also interesting to see a video interview of Tom talking about this sort of things like UAPs, ETs, and science and what it all means. Usually it's just some old interview from years ago, but it was really cool to see it. And also he was quite funny in it as well. He was making a lot of jokes. So it was really cool to see a new interview with Tom. And there were some things that were really interesting in it. One of the things that I really liked was that he was, uh, in a sense, sharing how these ETs or these beings um, are able to tune into certain frequencies and read people's mind and to know what people will be doing. Um, so that was really interesting. I mean, he was giving examples how the Italian government shared some information with him, how there's hundreds of hotspots in the Mediterranean, in the ocean, where there's a lot of UAP activity. And he was sharing some stories that was really wild. He was saying how the Italian government were tracking something coming from the ocean that was giving off some sort of energy beam into the coastline, into people's homes. And this energy beam was supposedly blowing up microwaves and electronic devices and even causing fires, which is a crazy thought. I mean, I don't really see the main purpose in that. Um, Unless it was just to get people's attention to cause confusion and panic, or yeah, I don't. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it was a really interesting story because it was something that was talked about a little bit in the TV show that he did with Unidentified with Lou Elizondo. There was one episode where the some of the guys from the Italian government were sharing pictures of a UFO actually causing damage on an Italian helicopter, and that this has been happening for a long time, and even causing fires and natural disasters and things like that. They didn't go too much into it, but in that episode, there was Lou Elizondo and Tom at a desk with some Italian officials, which was really cool. So it kind of backs up his claim uh, that the Italian government are recording this um, and are sharing it with, you know, US personnel and Tom DeLonge. um, but yeah, it was really interesting. He was kind of sharing how these beings are able to just tune into frequencies. And he was also sharing some ideas how um, he was reading a book about seances and how there was a scary story where there was a seance happening. Um, I think it was like six people were having the seance, and uh, they were channeling um, some being. It wasn't clear who it was or what it was, but this being came out um, sort of communicating in a neutral way, saying we're from this and we want to do this and that. It wasn't really anything aggressive or too brotherly love. It was just kind of neutral, the message. And then Tom was mentioning how as soon as people started getting afraid and the emotions starting changing, uh, the message changed, and uh, the temperature dropped. It got really cold, and a lot of sort of scary paranormal stuff happened. And he said that within 6 months, all of them died in weird, mysterious ways, except one person who, during the seance, didn't feel fear. And this was kind of crazy because I've heard this sort of theory before, how the phenomenon is reflective in a sense, how, and heard this said before by Jim Samivan, also Jack Ballet in his book Dimensions, which I've been reading recently, talks about how sometimes it is reflective. If you are feeling certain strong emotions, it will sort of manifest in that way. Um, but something else though, who was really, really interesting was Tom was saying how uh, maybe these beings don't actually have a conscience, and they need a host because they're so interested in human emotions of fear and love, which is the strongest, maybe the most powerful. If you say love is the highest frequency and highest emotion, fear would be the lowest one. So it wants to experience these things, and it wants to, because it can't. Um, and something a bit, yeah, bit wild that he was talking about, how maybe these beings actually know that when they die, there is nothing, but they know that human beings are immortal and that they go on forever, that they may reincarnate. Um, and that's why they're jealous of human beings. They want what we have, which goes into a lot of the theories of genetic manipulation and, yeah, like the theories of the succubus and incubi wanting to procreate with the human race. Um, Maybe that's for another episode, but yeah, it was really interesting hearing him just talk about these things really openly and didn't really care what anybody said. Yeah, even Steve-O was quite into it. He was like talking about Neil, I think Neil Donald Walsh, about conversations with God and how he's experienced things like that as well, where he's seen beings, but through altering his consciousness through psychedelic drugs. So I think Steve was quite open in the podcast as well to hear these stories from Tom. Um, and it was quite cool how Tom was, in a sense, uh, believing how human beings have these amazing potential, almost like Superman, and that according to him, a lot of these creatures or ETs, uh, they they come at a certain time where it's cyclical, where human beings are becoming too powerful. Because there was a point of discussion where Steve-O was mentioning how human beings create nuclear weapons, and they're coming to stop that because they don't want to kill us. They don't want those nuclear uh, bombs to be used against against us. For us to kill each other off. And Tom disagreed. He was saying how in history you see this pattern where human beings are evolving to a certain point with technology, and even the Tower of Babel in biblical times, or even in some myths like Atlantis, you call that a myth. Um, at a certain point, there is this contact with the other world where they confuse you, where they want to, in a sense, destroy you or change your beliefs, change your language, bring in a different religion, separate humanity. And it was quite interesting that Tom was saying that anything that really separates humanity is not really good for us, in the sense that if human beings really knew our potential and the power that we have, which he thinks is like telepathy and um, telekinesis and all these things, where it sounds like um, Jedi power, we were united, and that um, there wasn't some belief structure that separated us. Like sometimes Christianity has sinners and believers or saints, and every religion has this, like those who are in and those who are not in. And uh, in a sense, he believes that this is actually influenced by the the beings themselves. They come in at a certain time and inject some sort of belief where everybody has a different hope for the world and for themselves. Um, so this is quite cool. I mean, uh, I really enjoyed hearing him talk about these things. Um, I don't know exactly um, how human beings can actually, if this was all true, how we've been, in a sense, stifled by certain types of beings, how you can actually fight back unless we were able to evolve our psychic abilities, which is something that even Ingo Swann talked about. That if we all had a more developed psychic abilities with remote viewing and telepathy and telekinesis, it would be a huge problem for these beings. Um, but yeah, some people think that nuclear weapons are the thing that really messes them up. That's why they're sort of intervening, because when we started using them, then it was messing up in their timeline. But it doesn't make much sense. We've tested a lot of nuclear weapons, and it doesn't seem like they've actually tried to stop them or anything. There's even cases where they've turned them on. Um, so, yeah, it was really cool to listen to this interview. Um, he was also mentioning something that was cool. He said he wouldn't doubt that there have been face to face interactions with some of these beings and technology transfer. Exactly what that means, I don't know. I mean, he does think that he says TTSA have a piece of a craft that is what he thinks is otherworldly. And that's maybe what he thinks is a technology transfer, how this is somehow not just an accident that's been left behind, that this is a purposeful transfer of technology, which would mean that they are completely observing us. And if they have a more developed um, way of understanding time, they would be able to know certain destiny of the human race. And if they're in a different timeline, they could just want to either push us forward for whatever reason to progress, or to stifle us, which is a scarier thought. But yeah, uh, this interview was really cool. Um, I hope you guys listen to it, and I'd like to see what you guys think about this episode. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks a lot.